The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California. It is a very, very important day in American history. The Senate is about to act on an appointment that could affect us all for the Supreme Court, and I'm trying to make heads or tails of it. I thought I'd bring in one of my favorite people who can give us some idea of what's going on. A returning guest from Argentina via New York City, Mitchell Belacone. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. And yourself?
I'm an old man in a small town. How good could it be? But on the other hand, how bad could it be? So just being an old man is a privilege. To be serious for a second, give me your thoughts about what's going on. You mentioned off the air that you're not a particular fan of the candidate for the Supreme Court, and that said, I don't want to vilify the guy for the wrong reasons. I'm not a fan of him. Accusations notwithstanding, I think he should be voted down. But you have some ideas about the process, what we're going through as a country to identify things. Why don't you elaborate, Mitchell? I'm really interested in your opinion.
Well, first off, I'd like to see him not get elected. He stands for nothing that I stand for. He's just another pasty-haired, phony-looking Republican. Not that I don't like some Republicans, but I don't want to see him get elected. Like I said. That being said, I don't care for what's going on, where anybody can accuse anybody and come out of the woodwork in this witch hunt society, and that becoming puritanical. All somebody has to do is open up their mouth, and the person has to defend themselves and presume guilty. My point is this. As tough as it sounds, and in some cases it is tough for a 15-year-old girl to go to the police in a situation like that, but parents' responsibility teach their children these type of situations, you go to the police, because after that, I don't really want to hear it. I don't want to hear your story from 25 years ago.
I don't think you're paying attention to the statistics that are coming out about young girls, women of all ages, and their dilemma, their problem in reporting these things about society never believing them, that you yourself, who's an open-minded person, could say, I'm tired of people with unfounded accusation. All you have to do is have an accusation and mention Dr. Ford in the same breath after what she's gone through in these hearings. You know she has a right to come out, and you know that people don't come out at any particular time if they're affected by this. Was she going to go home and tell my parents, a 15-year-old girl, was she going to communicate with her parents in that way? Did you, at age 15, communicate with your parents? Would have you, if you were molested, could you try to... That's what's wrong with society, I think. It's the way women are treated when they do come out. And it's just a natural thought to have. It's a delay in the process, this, that, and the other thing. Anybody can make an accusation. She wasn't just anybody. She was a real person with a sworn deposition, and she got to go up. I don't think the way the Democrats handled it, I think she was used as a pawn. I think the very despicable, for other reasons, Ms. Feinstein played a big role, or her assistant, her people played a big role on outing this woman. So no one's innocent, but got to pay attention. And, at least they're talking now, we're in the midst of this as we record, they're talking now about getting the FBI involved because of Flake's insistence and holding back his vote, which he never would have done if there wasn't a confrontation with two protesting women in the elevator. That scene was caught live on CNN and is already being played over and over again, and it is dramatic. These people, we as a society need to investigate this man and this woman to see if her allegations are truthful. You're absolutely right.
Look, politics are dirty in the first place, and I don't care how dirty they get, because the Republicans or the Democrats are going to out-creep each other out to knock the other one out. Fine. I want to see them lose, and I don't care how they do it. But if you ask me, from a personal standpoint, yeah, I know this is difficult for women, and that's why I'm saying it's got to change. The parents have to, as society goes forward, and this is going to be a watershed moment, possibly. You tell your children, look, when they're 14, if you start training them early, you go to the police. It's a police matter. When all is done and said, it's a sexual or just an assault. It's a police matter. Once you start taking these things out of hands and prosecuting people for it, I don't like it. And I also have a book on that subject called The Yoga Class Rapist. I lived in a small town. I call it a small town, Charleston. And one day I walked into my class. I'd been going there for a year, and the teacher and the yoga teacher surround me. I was friends with them for the whole year, and say, "You can't come in here anymore." I said, "Well," I was in shock. Why can't I come in here? "We have 5 women that'll come forward and say that you raped them." I was in shock. To that point in my life, before I had a Latin girlfriend, I never even yelled at a woman. I never yelled back at a woman. And it was just a bunch of false accusations and nonsense from ex-girlfriends that had got together in a small southern town. So when everybody says this person's guilty of that or that person's guilty of that, it makes me sick to my stomach, because I've been down that road. I had never even raised my voice as men do to women. I wasn't trained that way, and I had to go through this in a small town. It never got washed away, and finally I had to move. Granted, I was naive. I probably was with too many women in that town for my own safety, but I learned the hard way. So that's why it's
regretful of your actions, or that they were brought to light.
Well, I had no actions because I never sexually assaulted anybody. I never came close to doing something like that. These were just women with an axe to grind. In a town like that, it was a no-win. If I didn't sleep with them, they were going to start up rumors about me as a rejection. And if I slept with them, the word would get out, and then just a bunch of gossip. So I've been around a bunch of gossip. What everybody says means zilch to me. I can take you to a town in South Carolina where everybody still says that Jimmy and Tammy Faye Baker are prophets of God. That doesn't necessarily make it so. So it's a sore subject with me. Yeah, he's a creep. I assume, not that I know because I don't trust any corporate media, and, I'm getting the facts through them. I don't want to see him, and I don't like what he stands for, and let the Democrats do it that way. But if you ask me on a personal basis, I couldn't live in the United States with all this witch hunt, puritanical nonsense going on. Turns my stomach. Europeans laugh at us for good reason. when the Clinton affair went down, I remember seeing an interview with an Italian lady, attractive lady in her 30s, and she says that your country's going to pay for what they're doing to Clinton for that affair. So, well that was my.
Let me say one or two things. First of all, prior to Trump, I never cared much what Euro trash thought of our society. Them laughing at us was preposterous. That said, now with Trump in control, I'm very sensitive to being laughed at by folks who all over the world think of us as clowns.
I don't lose sleep over it. I don't really care what they think, but if you look at what other people are saying that come from, as far as I'm concerned, a little bit more civilized society than ours, this is it. If you just want an outside opinion, I'm not bowing to what they say I should.
It's all opinions. It's all opinions and talk. How about? I'm always one for, if you identify the problem, try to identify a solution, or at least propose something, or have you thought of something? What would be a better way of doing things, according to Mitchell? I'd love to say
they were, as far as the human race goes with people, they were asking Eugene O'Neill.
In relationship to what we've talked about, identifying what is and what isn't a witch hunt, and the bulk of what we talked about, what would be a better solution in a perfect world for Mitchell Belacone?
Well, if you're asking just for me, they asked you, this is not going to be a popular opinion, but from my personal standpoint as far as the human race, they were asking Eugene O'Neill, the turn-of-the-century playwright, and he was an old man in the 1940s, and they were explaining to him about the atom bomb. And he asked the interviewer, he said, do you mean to say that this thing can wipe out the whole human race? And the interviewer said to him, yes, it can. And O'Neill's response was, might not be such a bad thing after all. So my answer is, I have no hope.
You're absolutely right. But are you at the point where you absolutely have no hope for the human race?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. Greed, lying, competition is the law of the day. The destruction we've done to the planet in the last 100 years, there's no turning back now. And I used to think I'd almost enjoy watching it, except I have a kid now.
Okay, well, you and I are the same thought-wise along that line, and we both have a kid. So here's my thinking to try to cheer you up a little bit.
Okay.
No matter how much we fuck it up ecologically, we will be able to catch up because of technology and because of the computers, and knowledge begets knowledge and what have you. We'll be able to reverse it. To say it can't be reversed at this point is discounting the fact that it.
I don't say it can't be reversed, but you have to have the mindset to do it. When you have almost people putting Trump in office, who was going out of his way to say.
Our generation doesn't have the mindset, but the next generation will have the mindset to do it. So you can't say it's absolutely written off. And I think, like I say, technology will enable us to catch up. Unless, of course, we do something absolutely stupid, like put a man like Trump with his finger on the button, as an example. But there's no underestimating what the great unwashed masses will do to fuck it all up. That's the best way I can put it.
Well, we can hope that technology can fix it all up, but the bottom line is technology is what's gotten us here. Because people can use technology for good or bad. The United States was leading the world in the right at the beginning of the Reagan administration. Nobody else was involved with it. The United States was making great guns with it. Reagan, appealing to his party, killed the whole industry in one day. He took away the subsidies, not from oil companies, but from the solar industry, and wiped it out. It died. End of story. And now it's slowly trickling back. The good news is, it's still going on. It's still coming back in spite of the present administration. But so all this back and forth and the dirty tricks. How are they going to how's either party going to go lower? So I can't get involved with the dirty tricks. All I can say is I hope he doesn't get elected. But what I don't like from a personal standpoint, I have to pull my perspective back and say, okay, don't let your personal standpoint get in the way of letting this moron, this Puritan become a Supreme Court judge. But from a personal standpoint, it galls me to no end that everybody's got an opinion what this guy did in high school. Because people are going to testify he did, and people are going to testify he did. Yes, I take into consideration it's very difficult for women to come forward, but that has to change.
Well, now we have the FBI is likely to get involved.
So they should have been from the start instead of just random applications.
What they wanted to do was ram it through before midterm elections, and no question about that. And all the Republicans wanted to do was stop them, and it was based before the allegations came up on this rift, this ideological rift that we have in this country. We don't want to, you and I, for instance, don't want to go back to the Dark Ages. But 48% of the folks out there, at least the ones that's not the case. And the more I get these numbers fixed in my head, the more I think of being an agoraphobiac, where I just sit in the house in the backyard all day and just don't go out there and mix. And see, that's what's wrong with the country. We've lost the ability to openly socialize, to be a melting pot, because from the top, Trump looks down and says, we're not a melting pot. The only good people are the white rich people, this, that, and the other thing. So it is depressing, but if we could keep this guy off the Supreme Court, not his accusations notwithstanding, for his ideology, his reasons of setting us back, of wanting to not investigate a president, a sitting president, immune to investigation. And it's no coincidence that he came out of the Bush administration.
Another do nothing there.
But it's nice event, isn't
it? I lost my train of thought there for 1 second on.
Well, take a deep breath and you take off, because I'm tired of hearing my voice for a second.
Oh yeah, there's I got lost, and you were saying that the United States people don't socialize; they want to stay home. That's a couple of things that I prefer about Argentina. It's a schmoozing society. Everybody chats with everybody, even though it's a big city. It's not like it's a fantasy land here. It's not euphoria, but people schmooze. If I make an innocent approach to talk to somebody, they're going to chat back and joke back. And there's no battle of the sexes here. You don't have that edge between men and women here. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have differences in this, but it's different. And I'm not saying it's better here. There's advantages to the United States, and there are advantages in other countries, but that's certainly not one of them. The United States, it's stay home and watch videos society.
Now, I have a lifelong interest in communicating, people communicating with each other, and I picked up on what you said. And I'm paraphrasing you, I never once raised my voice until I moved with a woman, until I moved to Argentina. Do people in Argentina communicate at a higher decibel?
Well, no, I would say I had never yelled at a woman or yelled back at a woman. That was in New York. I had a Brazilian girlfriend that would accuse me and yell at me all the time, so I finally screamed back at her one time. Here, no. It's Latin women are a little bit more emotional. If you're going to generalize, they'll come forward with their emotions a little quicker. They won't try to hide them. But no, Argentina again tries to pretend it's European.
Is it an open society, or is it run primarily by the church?
The church is not in your face. They have a lot of power in politics, but you don't see it at a street level. You don't see people trying to convert. You don't have this on the television. Like with an abortion issue, they'll come forward, but in a quiet way. So to me, it's 100-fold better here because I don't notice it so much. It's not. And then again, my reference point was when I lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and not to pump that book, but I said that I got accused of that. And that's why I wrote a book about it and how that finalized and how it came out, how it came about. And it's called, sorry to pump here, but the yoga class rapist.
Dude, that's what this is about. Selfless self-promotion.
Thank you. That's me. The yoga class rapist and other stories. And the title novella deals with the theme that it works two ways, that men can be abused also in our system. So that would be it, and I think a lot of men have gone through it too, which of course is not to compare the
physically and mentally, and that as with women, it isn't just physical. It's mental abuse.
Oh, absolutely. And in my case, it wasn't physical and mental. It was only mental. I mean, to compare the two, there is no comparison. I mean, a straight-up comparison, a false accusation against a woman being raped, obviously this is a much more horrific thing. But then if you think about it, I hate to make comparisons with the two, but let's take a drunk 19-year-old girl who passes out and she sleeps with somebody while she's halfway or not really knowing what she's doing, and this drunk frat kid is on her, and it's over the next day. Okay, she's humiliated, and I'm not going to say to what level. I don't know. Each situation is a different thing. But you take a guy like happens in...
And I don't think two men should really be qualified to have this conversation.
Right. I agree. But then you take the couple cases in California where I remember watching on television, there was an Indian couple, and I remember wishing that they would be hung, that they had molested 15, 20 kids and devil worshiping in their school. They served I'm not sure of the particular case, but there was one couple that served 10 years apiece. And they were they lived in the lower rungs of hell in prison because of what they supposedly did. Then they got exonerated. The two kids that had the testing for this by the psychiatrist was different back then, and they would lead these kids on. And two of the kids that they interviewed had psychiatrist parents that brainwashed their kids into actually believing they had been raped. So who's you can't compare. This couple spent 10 years in prison compared to some drunk girl that 19 might have been half conscious when she had sex. Okay, it can work two ways. So that's why even though I don't really want to say it in this situation, he's probably guilty. He strikes me as a creep. Nonetheless, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see any bad thing happen to him unless it was, or legally, unless it was done by the FBI or a legal entity. I don't like seeing somebody screwed over just for that reason alone. On somebody's accusation 5 years later.
We are in agreement that at least the FBI is going to get involved.
Huh.
And I thought if that didn't happen, I would really be have nothing to hang my hat on in terms of the future. Because really, if this guy gets through, again, the accusations notwithstanding, his promise to set us back to the Dark Ages, he promises that. It's not something we should be surprised at. He would, being the deciding vote, and that assumes, too, that Ms. Ginsburg stays alive for the rest of this guy's term, however limited it will be. It wouldn't have been good. This could not have been a good day, and wasn't when I got up at 8 o'clock Pacific time this morning. I didn't anticipate Flake, who had announced that he'd vote for Kavanaugh, didn't anticipate his change, and it was heartening to see that it was protesters that encouraged it. So, as an old advocate for many things, small and big, it was a good day for me. And I'm glad I got to share it with you.
All right.
All right?
I enjoyed it as usual. We hit a touchy topic for my...
I forgot, please, Leah, how people can get your book, if you would.
The Yoga Class Rapist and Other Stories is on Amazon. So it's either in a paperback edition or a Kindle. And that's the only really heavy topic that I cover. The next story, as Buds knows, it's a love story between a man, a dog, and a woman, not necessarily in that order. And there's other lighter stories in there, mostly for entertainment. Anatomy of a New York Street Fight, which covers two paralleling street fights in New York that I detail. And there's another story. Well, this is the last one I'll mention. And that story is called Two Dramas on My Way to Hell. And that's about a guy out on a date that covertly tries to meet another woman without trying to hurt the woman that he's with. And it's a comedy suspense thriller. So there's all different kind of stories in that book.
Nice.
The Yoga Rapist and Other Stories.
Mitchell, before I let you go, you have such an active mind, and you write down things. Who do you credit with that, with greasing the way for you to do this as a way of life?
I don't know how much more active my mind is than anybody else's, but whatever I do have, I credit a lot to the people that I've read. And I liked reading Bernard Shaw. I liked reading Theodore Dreiser. I liked reading Eugene O'Neill. I liked reading a lot of the classics.
And who in your early education inspired you? Any journalists, teachers, or English teachers, coaches? Who really inspired you growing up? Let's give them some credit.
I can't think of, there was a couple teachers that I liked. I wouldn't even remember their names. But, I think it's mostly people that I read and, people that you meet that are passionate about what they do. And it took me a long time to figure out that this is really what I want to do and where I want to put my energy. And, Yeah, I've been really happy staying busy with this book. Even these books, even the marketing of them is enjoyable to me because it's in a field that I enjoy. And yourself with the radio, how long ago did you get started with this?
Well, I've been doing podcasting about 6 years, and 7 now probably. And
Right.
about 2 years ago, I decided to share what I do with a bunch of different folks and get some podcasters together and form a network. And I've done that, and it's going great guns. So thank you for asking.
Yeah. No, so I enjoy listening to it and being part of it. So thanks for including me.
Let's do it on a regular basis. I appreciate your thoughts, and thank you for chatting. Thank you for being part of it.
Okay, amigo. We'll talk soon.
Friend. Be good.
Thank you very much.
If I told you I got 19 in Spanish at Newtown High School, and
19 out of what?
65 was passing. Her name was Mitchell Artis, and she didn't like me. She not only failed me, she failed me to the point where I had to get my grade point up to average 65 to graduate, and she didn't help me. But I could not learn a foreign language. I admire those who can. Tried to learn Yiddish as a kid, did learn to read and write it a little bit, but it was difficult for me. And when it came to Spanish, I was no habla español. That's all.
I live here, and I'm in almost the same boat as you.
Yes. But,
no soy un natural por idiomas. I'm not a natural for languages. My grammar and Spanglish is the language of the day in my household.
Well, we share that, and we're both Shavians, so that's nice.
Yeah.
All
Sei
right.
gesund.
Be well, my friend. Yes, sei gesund, and have a great week, Mitchell.
Thank you very much.
All
you
right.
too.
Thank you for listening, everybody. It was a great episode. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of it all. Adios, everybody.
Ciao.
This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.